Thank you for listening to this word from the New Bridge of Southwest Ohio.
I'm going to stay in the book Ecclesiastes, and it's kind of like, I don't know, I guess today's more of like a reminder. It goes well with what literally the exact same thing that Dale prayed about this morning, so stay out of my brain.
Holy Spirit.
So I'm going to start in Ecclesiastes chapter 1, and I'll probably read 1 through 11. So the words of the preacher, the son of David, king of Jerusalem. Vanity of vanities, says the preacher, vanity of vanities. All is vanity. What does man gain by the toil at which he toils under the sun? A generation goes and a generation comes, but the earth remains forever. The sun rises and the sun goes down and hastens to the place where it rises. The wind blows to the south and goes around to the north. Around and around goes the wind, and on it circuits the wind returns. Where does wind go? You guys didn't get it. All streams run to the sea, but the sea is not full. To the place where the stream flows, there they flow again. All things are full of weariness, a man cannot utter it. The eye is not satisfied with seeing, nor the ear filled with hearing. What has been is what will be, and what has been done is what will be done. And there is nothing new under the sun. Is there a thing of which it is said, see, this is new? It has been already in the ages before us. There is no remembrance of former things, nor will there be any remembrance of later things yet to be among those who come after. So I think a lot of the time we think about being equally yoked in our marriages or with whoever we're with, boyfriend, girlfriend, fiance, whoever. But I think a lot of the times, like, we seem to forget about being equally yoked and having unity within not only your household with your children, but also within the body of Christ. And I know we've talked about it before. If one person is doing one thing in the body and someone else isn't doing another thing, then it's not going to work because everyone's not on the same playing field. I think that also goes to like your joy and your outlook on life itself. At work, I'm surrounded by a lot of people that I would call pessimistic. And as odd as it is, because the way my personality is and how brutally honest I can be, I'm a very optimistic person. The cup is always half full through my viewpoint. And being surrounded by people that are the cup is half empty, it's hard to be around those people. And now that doesn't go to say like you can't have like very real expectations or real a very real outlook on things. Like, for instance, me and Eli, I'm a very the cup is half full kind of person, whereas he's kind of like in the middle. And he's like, well, this is going to happen, this is going to happen, this is going to happen. I'd rather be prepared for this than to get my hopes up and it not come through, which is very like, it's a good take on things that go on. But what?
I just think it's funny.
Why?
Darn it.
Yeah. Yeah. But, well, a lot of people are always like, there's a few people that I work with that are very like, the cup is half empty. And, well, this is going to go wrong, this is going to go wrong, this is going to go wrong. Well, what if this kid does this? What if this kid does that? No one cares. Do what you got to do and keep going. In the end, it'll end up being okay. But what I'm getting at with that is, I think on either side, we can come from a place of having unfair expectations placed. And if you're not equally yoked, or if you're not within unity, whether your spouse, the people in your tribe, your immediate family, that automatically is going to become a problem. And especially if you're not upfront about the expectations that you hold. Like for instance, I'll throw myself under the bus. There's a lot of the times where like I think, oh, Eli's taking longer to get home today. I'm gonna get a surprise when he gets home. And like I placed this expectation. I'm like, man, he knows it's been a rough week. He's taking a little bit longer to come home today. I'm gonna get something. And I love gifts, love gift giving, love receiving them. And there's been times where he's come home and is like empty handed, and I'm like, what are you doing? But that's like, I go back to think, okay, Eli's also, and I have learned this by now, is a very like straightforward person. If you do not tell him that you want something, he's not going to do it. He might do it every once in a while. However, he's not a mind reader like the rest of us are also not mind readers. And so to place an unfair expectation on someone because you think that they might know what you're wanting is wrong. And that's been something that I've had to overcome a lot here recently, is placing unfair expectations on people, because like I think about, okay, well I see this, this, and this. And because I love giving, I like to give people what I can. And not everyone thinks like that, and that's okay. That's why we're all different. But I've had to learn with like my own marriage, doing that only causes problems between me and him. And that's not fair. And it goes the same way for like family. I can't think of a specific example right now, but I know I've placed unfair expectations on siblings, parents, and I've gotten upset about it. But once again, like that's not fair. You're not reading my mind, and it is what it is. So I think that goes into like friends, family, tribe, everyone. And like I said, I will throw myself under the bus because I had to do a lot of self-reflecting with it. I've placed unfair expectations on people, and it's caused like the balance of things, whether in my house, family's houses, tribes' houses, that's caused that yoke to be unequal. So thinking about it from that standpoint, and then go to Ecclesiastes 3:1, and I'll do 1 through 15. For everything there is a season and a time for every matter under heaven, a time to be born and a time to die, a time to plant and a time to pluck up what is planted, a time to kill and a time to heal, a time to break down and a time to build up, a time to weep and a time to laugh, a time to mourn and a time to dance, a time to cast away stones and a time to gather stones together, a time to embrace and a time to refrain from embracing, a time to seek and a time to lose, a time to keep and a time to cast away, a time to tear and a time to sow, a time to keep silence and a time to speak, a time to love and a time to hate, a time of war and a time for peace. What gain has the worker from his toil? I have seen the business that God has given to the children of man to be busy with. He has made everything beautiful in its time. Also, he has put eternity into man's heart, yet so that he cannot find out what God has done from the beginning to the end. I perceive that there is nothing better for them than to be joyful and to do good as long as they live. Also, that everyone should eat and drink and take pleasure in all of his toil. This is God's gift to man. I perceive that whatever God does endures forever. Nothing can be added to it, nor nothing taken from it. God has done it so that people fear before him. That which is already has been, and which is to be already has been, and God seeks what has been driven away. So, no, so with that one, do you see how placing unfair expectations can go into that as well?
Yeah.
So, and this isn't all about like unfair expectations. It just goes into like the whole part of being like equally yoked, and how even just being off a little bit can cause like timing to be messed up, God's given tasks to be messed up, your relationships with others to be strained. And I also like to think about anything. Yeah, there's times that we're going to stress and there's times that we're going to fret about what's going on. However, if you can't find the joy in something, more than likely it's not for you. It's not provided by God for you. Now, that doesn't mean that you don't have to work for something, because anything that you want in life, just being on this side of, being on the earth side, you have to work for things that you want. But I don't think that placing or being unequally yoked is going to help in that. And I also I want you to think about not only your relationship side of things, but you as an individual. If you place unfair expectations on yourself, that's the same thing as placing unfair expectations on your partners in life. And that can also cause things to be unequally yoked. And for instance, there's a lot of the times whenever, which Eli catches me with it, I come home from work and I'm like, okay, I need to do this, 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 and this because I'm the woman of the house. And Eli's like, dude, sit down. Like, you worked all day. There's no reason for you to come home and do X, Y, and Z. Like, it's really not that big of a deal. But it can cause, especially for me, work full time, come home. I got used to going to school all day, not actually working, and then coming home, being able to do whatever I wanted to do, and got the house cleaned up. I would make dinner. And I got so used to being in that process. Well, now that I'm working all day, every day, it kicks my butt. And a lot of these kids also kick my butt. And you come home after a long day of that, and it's like, I want to sit down and do nothing. But then I place that expectation on myself. And I'm like, okay, I need to do this, this, and this. Otherwise, my husband's going to be mad at me. When in reality, he couldn't care less. And it just I think that's important for us to keep in mind, because that can also cause you to go into a negative mindset and be more of a cup is half empty kind of person. I don't think we're placed on this earth and to do God's will and do things that God wants us to do to be negative all the time. That's the point of being the light for everyone else. And yeah, that's what I got. Hopefully you got something. If not, try again next week.
Next week.
Good job. I like the approach. It's a different paradigm to bring that, but everything that was said, it is true. And a lot of times we forget about balance in life. It was explained to me kind of like this. If I was spiritual all the time, 24/7, 7 days a week, I would probably be living under a bridge, because I wouldn't get no work done, wouldn't get no paycheck, wouldn't be able to pay bills. You wouldn't be able to do anything. So you have to, be in the woods. And you have to take that time to stay balanced. And the Bible even says, be sober or be balanced. We usually take that as alcohol or whatever, which, the Bible says, don't be in drunkenness, which is, the opposite of sober. It's being unbalanced. So it is important for us to learn that to be in the moment and to be balanced in the moment And when you build on that day by day, you begin to live a life in the moment, which brings joy even in obstacles and trials and tribulations. You're, yeah, going through it, but it's like the fourth man in the fire with you. And that's important. Jesus said it like this: the sons of God are led by the Spirit of God. So, really, what I have to do is I have to stay focused. And Jesus was so perfect at it that he said, I don't say anything that I don't hear my Father saying, don't do anything I don't see my Father doing. And he's talking about, obviously, Jesus had conversations. He probably told jokes and stuff like that that absolutely had nothing to do with the kingdom. You know, he's had a long day of ministry or whatever, and they're sitting by the fire and they're eating fish or whatever, and they've talked some kingdom stuff, but then some other stuff too. But it comes down to being in the moment, hearing, seeing, and knowing what is my assignment in this. And sometimes it is nothing. I think we forget that Jesus says, I say nothing unless I hear my Father say it. I do nothing unless I see my Father doing it. So what Jesus is saying is the hardest part for us in our humanity is to do nothing. And sometimes you have to have a time of nothing. Now, you can't do nothing all the time, but you also can't be busy all the time. You can't work all day, come home, and then do all the stuff that you used to do, because your body has to have some rest. It has to have some downtime. It has to have a day off. Even God took a day off. And so learning to balance those things is very important. So I really like the message. I like that you pulled this out of Ecclesiastes, because a lot of interpretation of Ecclesiastes is that Solomon is bitter and angry, and he's just like, there's nothing to life. It's just all vanity. But he's really given some wisdom in it if you really read between the lines and recognize like what he's trying to say, is that eternity is important, and God's got a design, and my job is to get into the design of God and to walk in that by the Spirit. And if I do that, I can find the joy in the moments, in the times. I've had Dawson and Marshall spent the night last night, and I was watching them as it was getting late, and it took me back when I was a kid. Then it took me back when my kids were kids. And it's funny how I look at like generations, how my Uncle Tom was older than my dad, and then the type of person that Chase is fits more like my dad, and Jaden more like my Uncle Tom. And now I was watching Marshall and Dawson, and like Marshall's representing Chase now, and Marshall's representing Chase, and Dawson's representing Jaden, and how it just keeps flip flopping back and forth. But every generation, it becomes more pure, becomes more like the Father, more like the way Jesus had set it up. So it's cool to recognize in the moments what is happening. And as I'm watching it, it gave me joy in that moment to see them as brothers, you know, working together, playing together, and not in opposition or fighting or whatever. Now, people can get on your nerves, and people in your own house can get on your nerves. That's normal, because sometimes I have expectations that they don't know about. And then you get frustrated, and then they're wondering why you're upset and you're mad, and it's kind of confusing. And it can all be dealt with just by simple communication. That's it. Simple communication. Well, they should know. Well, I'll speak for us men, we don't. Now, as I've gotten older and been with Jessica for 18 years, I can read the room a lot better, and I can recognize what is taking place, where she's at, what type of day she had, what her need would be. I don't always feel like doing the dishes, but when she gets home at 7:15 or 7:30, it's nice for her to come to a clean house with a cooked meal, you know. But she doesn't put that expectation on me. She knows, like, if I don't get to that or I'm having a day, then we'll just order something or, hey, pick something up on the way home. So good job. Like it, like it. That's pretty much it.
Thank you for listening. If this word connected with you, follow us on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts for more.